This leaked file requires Level 4 classified clearance to view. This deadly anomalous entity has devoured countless Foundation personnel and civilians. Unlike other SCPs we contain, this terrifying beast is actively utilized. The Foundation willingly feeds it human subjects for a redacted purpose. What it consumes isn't flesh, but something far more horrifying. Stay until the end to learn the classified truth about its existence. Classified archives hold beings we might clumsily label gods. Some are caged, their divine power shackled by procedures. Others remain forever beyond our grasp, in other realities. For nearly all, the stance is unwavering vigilance. But there is an exception, a being whose godhood is a matter of profound, terrifying debate. This is a rare Thaumiel class anomaly the Foundation utilizes. Deep beneath the waves of the Bay of Bengal, near the coast of India, lies SCP-3000. To put it simply, it is an eel. Its true length remains unknown. Between 600 and 900 kilometers, a colossal serpent culminating in a head just 2.5 meters in diameter. Containment in the traditional sense is impossible. The Foundation established a permanent naval patrol, a blockade. Its existence unveiled after fishermen mysteriously disappeared in 1971. Their boats drifted too close to the Indian coastline. When the Foundation investigated, they found something unexpected. Its biology is a black box, requiring no sustenance. Yet it is undeniably carnivorous, secreting a gray substance. What precisely happens to the prey it consumes remains a mystery, but during feeding, its skin secretes a viscous gray substance, a compound the Foundation has designated Y9.9. The existence of a creature this massive would be enough to warrant an SP designation. But its physical form is merely the prelude to its true anomalous nature. SCP-3000 is a living, breathing cognitive hazard. To look upon it directly is to invite a cascade of mental collapse, searing headaches, crippling paranoia, overwhelming terror, and the violent fragmentation of memory. You don't even need to see it, merely being within its vast, unseen presence is enough to trigger these effects. An early exploration log paints a chilling picture of this initial encounter. A Foundation submersible descended into the abyss, its crew already gripped by a profound, inexplicable unease. One specialist in particular began to break. He was sweating profusely, insisting he was forgetting something vital, something he couldn't name. As they plunged deeper, his behavior grew more erratic. He questioned the mission, his purpose, his own identity. Soon the rest of the crew echoed his confusion. When the impossible form of the eel finally drifted into their viewports, the erratic crewman began to whimper, a low, terrified sound that escalated until he was just muttering the word no over and over, forcing the team to sedate him. As they neared the creature's head, the rest of the crew complained of a mental fog, a disorienting haze clouding their thoughts. The captain, desperate for a rational explanation, dismissed it as nitrogen intoxication. Then, SCP-3000 turned its ancient head to look at them. The sedated crewmen began to scream, a primal guttural shriek, thrashing in his restraints and claiming it was in his head. In a final violent spasm, he smashed his face against a porthole, cracking the view screen and forcing an emergency ascent. As he lay dying on the floor of the submersible, his last words were a haunting whisper, "There's nothing." Despite this disaster, another expedition was deemed necessary. A 3-man team from MTF Orion 9, callsign Kingfishers, was sent down. The water was cold and black, but the real problems began almost immediately. On the comms, the team became hopelessly confused, mixing up their call signs. One member seemed to stumble over the very concept of the word designation. The team leader then addressed a mission controller back at command, a man who had been dead for 2 years. Against all reason, command ordered them to press on. But the divers were lost, not just in the water, but in their own minds. As they drifted closer to the entity's location, one of them began to speak in detached, ominous phrases about oblivion and dark, watching eyes. Suddenly, SCP-3000 moved towards them with impossible speed. The radios went dead. For 30 seconds there was only static. When the comms crackled back to life, the line was pure chaos. One member of the team was gone, consumed. The leader was babbling, having completely forgotten who he was, where he was, or what his mission was. A moment later, his screams were cut short. He was gone too. Only one diver remained, miraculously clinging to a thread of coherence. He reported that forming a single thought near the creature was an excruciating effort. He described the eel being coiled inside his own mind, even as its physical form loomed before him. He saw the gray fluid, Y909, seeping from the skin around its head. Following his orders, he moved in, retrieved a sample, and sent it to the surface. His final transmission was a plea: "Don't send anyone else down here." His strained breathing could be heard over the radio for 3 more days, and then silence. I mentioned that SCP-3000 is a Thaumiel class entity, one that aids the Foundation. You're likely wondering how a mind-destroying deep-sea horror could possibly be useful. The answer lies in that gray fluid, that compound Y909. For decades, the Foundation has relied on amnestics, chemicals that induce targeted memory loss to maintain secrecy and protect its personnel from psychological trauma. For years, their amnestics were crude. They degraded in storage, caused unpredictable side effects, and their efficacy was often questionable. The discovery of Y909 changed everything. When incorporated into amnestics, it dramatically increased their stability and potency. Side effects plummeted. Subject suggestibility and memory clearance skyrocketed. Intrusive, returning memories became a thing of the past. The Foundation came to depend entirely on this compound, a substance they had no way of synthetically producing. And so the Atsac protocol was born. The procedure is grimly straightforward. A sedated D-class personnel is delivered to SCP-3000 as a delivered feeding. In the 2.5-hour window following this act, the creature's cognitive hazardous effects are significantly diminished. A specialized team of divers descends, harvests as much of the freshly excreted Y909 as they can, and returns to the surface. The rest of the file centers on the psychological toll of this work, focusing on a researcher, Dr. Krishnamurthy, and his assigned psychologist, Dr. Manovva. The therapy was mandated after Krishnamurthy attempted to open the airlock of the monitoring submarine without a diving suit. In his sessions, the researcher spoke of a profound exhaustion, a feeling of his mind becoming disconnected from his body. He was forgetting his work, his life. He dreamed of faces he didn't know and places he'd never been. The proximity to the eel was eroding his memories so thoroughly that he was no longer sure if he was married or had children, despite being the father of 5. But he saw SCP-3000 in his mind's eye, and he began to speak of Anantashesha, the great Naga king from Hindu cosmology, the cosmic serpent upon which the god Vishnu rests. He recounted a story his mother told him. When the universe finally ends, Anantashesha will be all that remains, floating in the timeless void. He became convinced that SCP-3000 was an Anantashesha, a god existing across all of time at once. He confessed, in defiance of the nothingness that comes after, there is an Anantashesha. A chance my memories might live on. I don't have proof. But when I looked into its eyes, I was afraid. I am merely a mediocre man, Anan. I have a fear of irrelevance, that no one will know who I am when I die. Afraid of being forgotten. Afraid of my life being meaningless. Afraid of being alone. Afraid of dying. There is a terror within me that I cannot reconcile. I won't lie, the maw of the Naga terrifies me. But between this and the infinite dark I have gazed into, I have made up my mind. Dr. Krishnamurthy was confined for 2 days. Upon his release, he walked directly to the submarine airlock, weeping. Proximity alarms shrieked as SCP-3000 rose from the depths to meet the vessel. Before anyone could stop him, the doctor donned a dive suit and stepped outside. The eel approached, its jaws opening wide. The doctor's last, choked words over the radio were, "I was wrong." He sobbed as the eel consumed him. On board, the crew began preparations to carry out the Atsac protocol. We see excerpts from Dr. Manovva's journal. He is now tasked with understanding what drove Krishnamurthy to suicide, to prevent it from happening again. Manovva, not a religious man, saw only an anomalous eel. He tried to recall his father's teachings about Hinduism, but found the memories hazy, blaming his own willful forgetfulness. He was permitted to go through Krishnamurthy's personal effects, and for reasons he couldn't explain, he chose to keep a small statue of the god Ganesh. Manovva documented his own cognitive decline. His proximity to SCP-3000 was draining his memories, new and old. He tried to memorize Hindu poems and songs, a desperate attempt to anchor himself, but the words wouldn't stick. A memorandum from the site director reveals a horrifying discovery about Y909. It wasn't blood or a simple biological excretion. It was more akin to a slurry of prions, the residual substance left behind after SCP-3000 breaks down the very thing that makes a person sapient. Biologists concluded that the creature wasn't digesting its victims at all. Their bodies were still inside it, perfectly preserved. SCP-3000 doesn't eat flesh, it devours minds. It breaks down consciousness itself, causing a person to forget their own existence. And the Foundation was willingly feeding this process to manufacture amnestics. The ethics committee was looking for alternatives, but for now the protocol continues. The final log is from Dr. Manovva's journal. He still couldn't fathom what would make a sane man leap into that creature's mouth. Earlier that week, he had knocked over a framed photo on his desk, a picture he believed was of his wife and daughter. On the back he found writing, his name, his wife's name, his daughter's name, but the handwriting was not his own. It was Dr. Krishnamurthy's. Stressed and confused, Manovva accessed the personnel archives. The truth shattered him. The woman in the picture was Krishnamurthy's first wife. The girl was one of Krishnamurthy's daughters. Manovva had not only mistaken them for his own family, he possessed entire lifetimes of memories with them, memories that belonged to another man. In that moment of awful clarity, he finally understood. SCP-3000 doesn't just destroy consciousness, it scatters the pieces. It leaves behind an empty shell, a husk of matter animated by fading electrical signals. He wrote, "If even I can't remember myself, how can I expect anyone else to remember me? I have forgotten my own life, and I am strangely apathetic at this revelation. I will fade into the darkness as thousands before me have. No one will care. I do not despair for my own sake, but for us all. You and I, we will all face obliteration. We are not important, vast droplets of irrelevancy stretching eons in the sea of time. I do not think the eel is an Anantashesha. What is clear to me now as I feel myself coming apart is that the eel is not some mythological creature. Perhaps it's just a primitive animal that eluded us. Perhaps it is a primordial deity. It doesn't matter. The eel is not the end of all things. It only shows us what the end looks like. And in spite of everything we might believe, every ideal we hold, I know this much is true for all of us. I know the end will be a forgotten one." Dr. Manovva was later found unresponsive near the airlock, having consumed a large quantity of raw Y909. He was transferred to Site-151 for analysis. SCP-3000 taps into a primal existential dread. The fear of being forgotten, of having your life's purpose erased. There are countless anomalies that can kill, maim or horrify, but very few can systematically dismantle the very essence of what it means to be human. SCP-3000 does not just take your life. It takes your story, and that makes it one of the most uniquely terrifying concepts the Foundation has ever encountered.